Chairman, thank you so much. Mr. Administrator, again, thank you for the job that you're doing. And again, I appreciate the work that your folks do. I know through every week that I fly through Laredo or San Antonio, your folks have been very pleasant in doing their job. I want to ask you, go back to the question about the security gaps, the IG, that the IG found. At this point, I think you're requesting about $200 million for screening technology, $116 million for training frontline employees. Now, how are we going to be assured that we're not adding money and then we get the same results? Because it's not the first time we face this type of situation. If you remember those X-ray machines that would show the body, and then you all put them in somewhere you all were renting warehouses. We lost millions of dollars on those machines. We were paying millions of dollars for storage on that, and I assume you all got rid of them already to the prisons or somewhere else where they expect less privacy. So how do we make sure that we keep adding money for personnel, that we're adding money for technology, and we're not ending up with the same type of results? And I want to be very supportive because we all fly planes, and I want to make sure that if we get into the plane that we're secure. But when those red teams saw that it was only a success rate of 4%, that puts us to think about some of the work that's being done.
Well, those are all the same questions that I asked when I came on board. There was a benefit to coming to taking the job in the midst of a crisis. It allows you to ask questions that you might not otherwise be able to ask, and allows you to address things in a way that you might not normally be able to do. So here's what I can tell you, and we owe you continuous updates, and I think I've provided a 120-day report to you, and I will continue to do that on a quarterly basis, partly to give you the measures that we're using to determine whether or not anything that you're paying for is actually, and that the American public is paying for.
What's your number one, are your measures, excuse me for interrupting, but are your measures on performance.gov?
I don't know if we post, well, we probably won't post, some of this is sensitive information, so I prefer not to post actual performance. But I'm willing to give that to the committee, but most of it is sensitive information. Yeah. But what I measure, as I mentioned, readiness, and then I measure performance, and I do that for both people and equipment. That's the big roll-up measures. There's a lot of components to that.
And we're measuring results, not activity, because
Absolutely.
Agencies have a tendency, and I've seen the performance.gov, and a lot of those measures there, and they're getting better, and I'm talking about you, but Homeland in general. The measures that I've seen have been more for activity than measuring results.
No, these are outcome measures. I mean, okay. I'm very focused on how well are we doing our mission. In my opinion, we weren't focused on outcome measures. So it's easy to measure activity. You're busy every day, right. But you may not be busy doing the right things. Right. So I'm very interested in understanding whether we're actually improving. So that's my fundamental focus right now, and that's one of the things I've been working with the IG is to ensure that what his tests help us understand our outcomes in addition to ours. So we've completely changed the way we do our red team testing so that it's focused on outcomes and then rolling those outcomes back into the way we do business. The difference here, here's what I said. Here's the way I approached it, and what I think we need to continue to do going forward. You always have to look at the systemic issues. You don't get that unless you figure out whether you got the thing that you needed to get on the other end. The other piece of this, and this is the piece that is sometimes I don't think as well understood by an agency, you can't just focus on the operating end of the agency. You have to look at all the things that support operations. So as you set, when the American public says, I want you to get something, to do something, in our case, to secure the aviation system, then you have to figure out, well, how do I get to secure? Well, there are things you have to buy, there's capability you need, there's requirements that you need. So I wasn't sure that we were doing that very well. And so I asked the Defense Acquisition University to come in and do a top-to-bottom review of the way we analyze our mission, set the requirements for the mission, and then eventually field capability, either people or things, to do it. And not surprised, they just completed that study for me. And not surprisingly, they found things that we need to do better. So I think there's a lot of work we need to do on the requirements end of the business so that we actually know what we need to do to get the outcome we want. That will keep you from putting things in warehouses. I'm not a fan of buying the next shiny object on the shelf. I'd like to buy the object that actually does the thing and it integrates into a system and it's designed to produce a result at the end of the day.
I got another appropriation, as you know, we're running around, so I won't be able to come back, and again, with all due respect. Thank you again, but for your personnel, I know there's some of your folks who are part-timers. Are you planning to move any of them up to full-time? And then TSA officers, maybe somebody asked this question, plan to move any of them to the GS pay scale? And that's all the questions I have.
Okay, well, on the part-time, full-time, we actually have a sizable full-time staff, but almost everybody hires in part-time and then converts to full-time. I'd like to see whether we can work with the committee to find ways to hire more full-time on the front end so that they don't have to wait to go full-time. And then with respect to the GS schedule, as you know, I'm not currently under the general schedule, and that's a function of the Aviation Transportation Security Act. It would take a congressional act to do that if we were to do that.
Okay. Thank you again for the work you're doing.